Good evening, paddlers. Tonight I'm going to go through all the things that we're planning to bring on our kayak adventure, where we're going to be paddling from Hoover Dam to the Mexican border. It's around 311, 320, depending on how straight we go, a little over 300 miles. Should take us about 11 nights and 12 days. So this is basically all the things that we plan to have on the journey, less a few items, and I'll mention what those are. Most importantly, I don't have the kayak here. I've got a 15-foot kayak with a rudder, which is really nice. It's an older kayak, but it does the job. Also a life vest, and then two paddles, one obviously paddle and one emergency paddle in case I lose one. I really am not a fan of the paddle leash that connects to the kayak. In case there's any reason that I were to fall out, I don't want to get hung up in the leash, so I just do away with that and bring a second paddle as a backup. Anyway, I'm going to go through everything here that we have. I'm going to start off first with the tent. This is an REI half dome 2-man tent. I also have a 1-man tent, but Forrest will be using that, so this is the next best thing. These are nice and light. They can fit in the kayak fairly well, and they also have a rain fly in case we happen to get into any rain. This will do the job. Also with the tent, I have this is like a pad. It's not really a pad, it's like more like a tarp that goes underneath the tent, and that's really just to protect it from poking sticks or rocks or things that may damage the tent. This pretty much is a protection layer. For the most part, I'll be using this every night, but it's not super necessary. I have it as just a precaution because we'll be out so many nights and I don't really have a lot of backup tents. This is the sleeping bag that I'll be using. It's just an Amazon purchase, but it's a 50-degree. It's nice. It's a square sleeping bag versus the mummy bags or backpacking bags that'll have a lot of the narrow feet. I don't sleep well in those, so I got this. It's a square. It can unzip all the way into a blanket if I wanted, but more importantly, it goes down to around 50 degrees, which is about as cold as I think that we'll be getting into. I'll also have some other layers of clothes that I could use if necessary. Start back in order here. This right here is the Jackery 300. This is basically going to power all the electronics that we'll be bringing. This should fit in the kayak, inside the kayak behind me, and then from this I run this power cord from the Jackery up through into the top of the kayak, where I have a 50-watt solar panel made by Renogy, I believe. Yeah, Renogy. And essentially this will also be right behind me on top of the extra paddles. This being in the sun for 7 to 8 hours every day, even if it's not perfect sun, that will be enough to top off whatever power we used the night before in the Jackery. And so by the time we get to camp, this Jackery should be full or mostly full. We should stop paddling around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, so I can always pull the Jackery and the solar panel out and keep the aim it exactly at the sun and keep the charging the Jackery. Once that's done, then once we're done charging for the day, the Jackery unit will essentially charge up all of our devices. In addition to that power bank, I've got 2 little mini ones here. These are pretty much just going to be for odds and end quick charge stuff, or if we need to charge something during the day while we're in and out of the kayak, that's what these will be used for. But also the important part for these is we'll be using these at night so that we can plug our phone in while we sleep. When we wake up, these will be mostly wiped out, and the Jackery will maintain its mid to high charge state, as opposed to if it's plugged into the Jackery all night, it just keeps slowly draining. I'd rather drain these out, wake up with a full battery in the morning, and then while I'm paddling, these 2 things will be plugged into the Jackery. So the solar panel will be charging the Jackery, and I assume we'll have both of these charged up by the time we're done paddling. Also have a little speaker that I have. It's just a little waterproof speaker. This isn't super necessary, but after you know, 7-8 hours on the water paddling. You get your tents and camp everything all set up, and you're sitting around having a meal. It's not bad to listen to a little music, a little Jack Johnson or something chill. Other electronics I got here, 2 Motorola radios. Forrest and I will both have a radio, so we can communicate whether we're on different parts of the river, like, you know, different sides of the river, or if we go for a hike, or if someone needs to go check something out and the other one stays with the kayak. All those things can happen. We're going to bring these for any kind of communication needs that we have. These things also handle weather, so I can turn it to the weather channel and listen to the local area weather that gets broadcasted over these. And in addition to that, they're waterproof, so if they go overboard, fall in the drink, they float, and the little light here at the bottom starts blinking. Also, I guess a backup flashlight if we were running out of any other light. But these are also no batteries, so they're just got an internal battery. They can be charged on the Jackery, same as the little speaker. Other electronics are the Garmin Mini. It's probably one of the more important parts of the items that I'm bringing on this trip. This I've upgraded to the highest tier package that you can get. I want to say it's like $50, and you get unlimited text messages. It sends a location beacon or a waypoint to my family every 2 minutes. This will probably be on my life vest or on the kayak, depending on if I'm with the kayak or not. But these are really great. I can send unlimited messages. It syncs to my cell phone, so just like sending a message on a cell phone, I can tell my family, this is where I'm camping for the night. These are the things that may or may not have happened during the day. We're leaving in the morning, or, you know, if there's any kind of emergency, I can get a hold of them. The other great thing about the Garmin Mini is that it has this SOS button. If for whatever reason I was to get into any kind of trouble that I needed, you know, more help than a first aid kit or a cell phone could provide, push this button in, all the departments come. So the fire department, the police department, everybody comes a running, and it also notifies the family, I believe. So this is a really good thing, not only for our navigational purposes, but also a massive safety device for this trip. Also have 2 headlamps. Nothing super crazy about these. They have an internal battery, so they'll charge off of the Jackery as well, but nice to have a couple flashlights. The good thing with the headlamp is if we get stuck in wind and we can't get to where we need to in time, if we're paddling at night or at dusk or whatever, these are going to be great to just give us some light where we're paddling, make sure we can keep an eye on everything. Next, I have this little waterproof box. There's not really anything great in here other than I have a knife, a Leatherman, a whistle, flint and steel, which I likely will never use. I don't even know if I'm really going to bring it. And then just a couple carabiners. This has just been more or less a box for putting things that I want to bring on the trip. I don't know if they'll stay in this, because none of those things are a big deal if they get wet, but just a good place to have a bunch of little items, and I know exactly what's in there. In addition to those, I have a waterproof cell phone case. It also floats. I have a fairly large cell phone, so this is good, fits that right in there. With the Garmin Mini, it syncs to my cell phone and has a navigational map in there. I've already loaded all the waypoints of the trip, so I'll be using my cell phone with the Garmin as our navigational plan for the 12 days. So it's important that I had something with a full screen that I could get right in front of where I'm paddling, and I could see and continue to map where we are and where we're going and how far we have left to go. So this will be really handy for all that stuff. Also have another knife. I think we can never have enough knives. I have a small junky pair of glasses just because I don't think I'll be able to make it the whole trip without seeing, and so I'll have a sunglasses pair and a regular pair just so I can see, and if these get lost, I got backups. I'm not worried about it. Next, I have a rope. This is probably one of the 3 ropes that I'll bring. One of the more important items again. Whenever we stop and get out of the kayak, whether it's at a campsite or just at a random beach to go on a hike or go check out a hot spring or whatever it might be, it's really important to tether the kayaks together and attach it to something on shore. The the dams throughout the day will let out water at various times of the day. It's kind of unknown. I know it's mostly in the morning, but there's been times where I've pulled the kayak up and walked away and the water comes up, and without a rope tethering it to a rock or a tree or something like that, a stake or something, that water can come up enough that it'll lift the kayak right off the ground and take it downriver, and wherever that happens is where Forrest and I will be stranded. So we've got we'll have a couple ropes that we can utilize for that. This is Altitude Coffee. A friend of mine makes it. They're pour over coffee kits. So these are really nice to just get a good hot cup of coffee in the morning. It's drip coffee, really easy little sachets, and you just pour the water in, drink the coffee. This is an insulated mug. I really like piping hot coffee, so I bring insulated mugs when and where I can. This is my pillow. This is an inflatable pillow. So basically when I get to camp, blow this up. It's not a huge pillow or something super cozy, but it's enough to get my head up off the ground and get a decent night's sleep. In addition to this, I have the Foxtail sleeping pad. This isn't anything super special either, but it's wide and it's long, so it fits my body well. It's a little bit larger than I think I would like. I'd like a little bit smaller one if possible, but this one just seemed to work and fits inside the two-man tent nicely, and I don't fall off it or hang off of it in any way, so it's a perfect sleeping pad for me there. The next thing to go along with those two is a Flextail vacuum and inflating device. These are tiny little, basically, inflators and deflators to inflate the pillow and the sleeping pad. Don't really think there's too much other than those two things, and not that this is even really a necessity. I was able to pick them up for really cheap, and so it just made sense because they're small, and because I'm going to be blowing these things up every single day, I figured might as well figure it out cheaply. You just push these a couple times and it fires right up there, and we'll blow it up. So I got two of these, one for me and one for Forrest, and that way we can get camp set up quickly and get to relaxing after a long day of paddling. Super handy. Next, I have sunscreen. This probably isn't the one that I'm going to use, but I brought it just so I can show I have sunscreen. More importantly, this sunscreen applicator, I have trouble reaching like a tiny triangle between the life jacket and where I'm able to reach. So this thing will be able to help me get to those locations and make sure that my back is fully sunscreened up, especially being on the water for 12 days. I could burn pretty quickly. I brought a pair of goggles, or just some cheapy pair I got. Not planning on doing much like swimming, but in case anything falls into the river, we have a chance of maybe going to grab it and seeing that. I don't know if it'll work, but I'd like to have them as a little bit of a backup. Next is the Katadyn, I think that's how you say it, water filtration system. There's two different sizes in here. One is a liter and the other one is a 3 liter. The liter is very similar to basically like a water bottle. You scoop up water, twist on the top. The cap itself is the filtration system. So then you just squeeze it out and you drink filtered water. We can just do that from the river all day long. And then the 3 liter one, nice big bag, and we can hang it from various things. And that's gravity fed filtration down into our water bottles. I'm not sure if I actually talked about this, but this is another insulated water bottle that I'll be using for camp. This will be, cooking or drinking. I'll use this overnight and then hopefully have this filled up in the morning. And then that's my first round of water until we get going further. That's gone. Then I can use the little water bottle one to continue drinking. I have a few inflatable LED solar lanterns. These things are kind of dorky, but been using them for like 10 or 12 years. They're really good. I can set these on the front of the kayak up on top. They can charge all day when we get to camp, blow them up, turn them on, and they pretty much can die each night, and we'll be able to charge them back up each day. Just some little just some light around camp so we can see. Don't stub our foot on something or whatnot. This is a small microfiber towel. This is really good for if we're jumping in swimming or for whatever reason we just need to dry off, whether it's our face or body or whatnot. This is really small, compact, does the job, and I don't have to bring a big towel. Not a big necessity because should still be, 70s in the day, so maybe 60, high 60s, but not a bad idea to just have a towel to dry off if necessary. I have a couple bandanas here. Nothing special about these other than they can just protect me from the sun. If I'm, exposed, like sometimes your legs can get right in the sun. If I don't have the sunscreen handy or whatnot, it's nice to cover up parts of my legs to make sure they don't get burned. Another cool thing, you can dunk them in the water and wrap them around your neck. That keeps you cool. Or just put them around your neck to protect against the sun. Put them over your head. There's a bunch of uses for those, so they're necessary. I threw in kind of an old umbrella. I don't know if I'll actually bring this. There's going to be a lot of campsites that we get to, places that we're camping that are super exposed in the sun, and there's not a lot of trees or shade. And if we're finishing paddling every day around 2 or 3 o'clock, it might be nice to pop this up and just have some shelter or some shade to sit under until the sun goes down or until we feel necessary. But we'll see if there's still room for this, but might bring that along. Next up is dry bags. So I've got a small one here, probably for like wallet and whatnot. And then this is probably going to be for all the electronics. These will still go inside the kayak, but just being super safe to keep everything dry. We're going to be on the water for a long time. I want to make sure that nothing gets ruined along the way. Then I also have this other dry bag. It's called the Scrubba. We bought this when we went backpacking and in Japan, I think it was. And this basically has a bunch of little rubber fingers on the inside, so you can throw 1 or 2 pieces of clothing in there, some soap and some water, and you seal it up and you can move it all around. It's pretty much like a 1 or 2 item wash machine, and then we can rinse it back out. Obviously, we'll be using river safe soap. We're not going to be biodegradable soap. We're not going to be contaminating anything, but this will be a good thing for us because we're on the river for 12 days. We're not really going to be able to bring 12 days of clothes, so we'll be wearing the same thing a lot. So this is a good option for us to keep us relatively clean. Not to say we're going to be doing laundry every day, but every 3-4 days we might clean a shirt or something. This is called the Jet Boil. These things are incredible. I've been using them for as long as I can remember. Essentially, this is the gas connects to the bottom. Pour water in. This water is boiling hot in around 2 minutes or less. This will be what we use for coffee in the morning, and then this can really should last us the whole trip. I'll have another one as a backup along the way, but that should last us the whole way. Essentially, we'll be boiling the water, and it will go into dehydrated dinners. This is most likely going to be the dinners for us almost every night. There's some floating restaurants along the river that we plan to stop at and get a burger or beer or whatever it is, but for the most part, these are what we're going to be eating along the way. They're really nice. This one is 620 calories and 21 grams of protein, so this is meant for 2 servings. Forrest and I will probably each eat one of these every night, so these will be a perfect way to keep us fed and full and not starving out there. We'll also have various snacks, beef jerky and stuff, but we're not planning to go super fancy on the food, just what's necessary to get through. Got a nice long spoon. These are good. Once you put the water in, you got to stir it up a bit and then let it sit for, 10 minutes or so. And then if you have a small spoon, you end up getting it all over your hand because you just eat out of the bag. So get a long spoon, it makes it a lot easier. This is a kayak seat pad. It's waterproof. It's got these, rubber cells, I guess, inside. It's just like basically a rubber mat. It's like I said, it's waterproof, and it's gonna be wet the whole time. I'm sure there's gonna be water in the kayak, but because we're on the water for 12 days, I think that having a little extra cushion will help get us there. I'm gonna bring a couple plates, or I plan to. I don't know if they'll actually make it into the. I don't know if they'll actually make it into the kayak, but I set them out just in case. If we're paddling along and it's time for dinner and we're not, neither of us are hungry enough to eat a whole dinner, figure I'd bring a plate where we could split one up, or if we stop and get something along the way, or leftovers or whatever it is, we could have a plate. But I don't know if I'll bring these. This just depends on if we have room. Bringing a small roll of Gorilla Tape. This stuff is insane, super sticky, and it can pretty much patch up or fix the majority of the problems that I think that we'll be encountering, if we even encounter problems, whether it's like used as a bandage, or if any of this stuff really breaks. This stuff has the stickiness to really hold things back together. So another little just safety backup that we'll be using. Hopefully not using, but have it in case we do. This is a first aid kit, obviously, but this thing is basically going to be used for minor scrapes and burns and cuts and whatnot. This isn't, although I think it has some trauma stuff in here, this isn't really going to be much for what we're going to use for trauma. If there is any of that, we're going to call the SOS or call the family to come get us. So this is pretty much just going to keep us safe from cuts and bruises and whatnot, but it's good to have. My wife went through it and made sure there was some good stuff in there. So we topped it off with some of the nicer Band-Aids and things like that, so we should be good. Next is wet wipes. Whether we just need, a quick shower, get the sunscreen of the day off, or, using the bathroom, that's what these will be used for. So I think we can figure out the rest. Then we've got a small camp chair. We each have one of these as well. I removed the little rubber feet off the bottom of each one and put these disc-like ones on there. So if we're sitting in the sand, the chair legs don't sink into the sand. You slowly just fall into the ground. So these are great. They're small. They're compact. They're not crazy comfortable, but it's enough to sit down, have your dinner on. Let's see. Next, I have this is like a kayak cockpit cover. This isn't, again, super necessary, but because we're going to be outside for 12 days, put these over the cockpit of the kayak every night, just to keep the critters out and the rain if it rains or whatnot. So that's kind of handy. In regards to like clothing, I've got a little sun hat here that'll keep the sun off my neck and my face as much as possible. Got some paddling gloves. I might get a thicker pair. These are really like my fishing gloves, but I might get a pair with some more padding, just because we're going to be doing that so much. We've got to really be careful of our hands and our blisters and stuff. In regards to clothes, like I said, we're not going to be able to bring that much. So probably a couple t-shirts, couple long sleeve hooded shirts, a hoodie, and a few pairs of shorts, and maybe one pair of pants just in case it gets cold at night or too cold at night. So that's about it in regards to clothing. So that's why we have the scrubber to take care of any dirty clothes. The last thing, or one of the last things I have here is these are the kayak wheels. So there's 5 dams that we're gonna have to get out and go around. They range anywhere from half a mile to 2 miles in distance that we're gonna have to walk the kayaks around. So with all this gear in a kayak, just put them up onto wheels, and then we just have to walk them around. It makes it way better than trying to, each of us carry a handle and walk them around. So I haven't quite figured out where or how I'm going to fit those on or in the kayak, but those are a necessity, and they'll have to make the trip. I think the last thing is I bought a section of deck foam. I don't know where that went, but I'm going to put that inside of the kayak, and that's basically just to protect my heels from being on hard plastic for 12 straight days. It's not a lot. It's a boater's deck foam that I got for super cheap. I'm just going to cut it to fit on the inside of the kayak just to give my heels a little bit more protection. But I think that's everything that we're going to bring along this trip. There's probably a couple other little odds and ends that we'll throw on, but for the most part, this is all the gear that we're planning to bring on a 12-day, 11-night kayak journey. Hope you enjoyed looking at it all. Hope you follow along the videos, and I hope you follow along the trip. That will be coming up in October 26th. Hope to see you on the river.